All right, this is part two, everybody. This is Mark Sims again, just asking a few questions, just a few questions. Atiba Buchanan is my guest. He's the host of Humanity in the Headlines, which is a podcast. You can find it. Just type it in. You'll find it. It's great. This is part two of our discussion. Hopefully, you heard part one. But Atiba, I got to ask you about my boy. I like Andrew Yang because he's promoting a lot of things, and his main shtick is a universal basic income. And I like Sanders and Warren because I think they're trying to move the country progressive, trying to move the country forward, trying to move the country ahead or forward for the half of all the Americans who couldn't come up with $400 for emergencies. I had to just pay $7 to get my car out the shop, so I'm feeling it right now. So talk about the
Absolutely.
progressive wing of the Democratic Party or candidates.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, here's the deal. It's completely and utterly necessary. If we're being honest, if we are being honest, while Bernie Sanders is not looking likely to be the Democratic nominee, we would not be where we are in policy without his 2016 run. He made it acceptable while people thought he was crazy in 2016 to talk about universal health care. Now it's part of the normal Democratic lexicon, and that would not be possible if it were not for him. So again, there are, with the policies that the progressives have, it might take some time for the United States to catch on to it. But if they're not here now, we will never get to it. So they are completely necessary to me. And those candidates, again, would include Andrew Yang, definitely Elizabeth Warren, and definitely Bernie Sanders. The question is, here's a fundamental question in this election. Do we want evolutionary change or do we want revolutionary change? And I'm definitely going for the revolutionary myself.
But probably there's a lot of Americans who would benefit for a more progressive United States of America from the Bernie Sanders campaign or the Elizabeth Warren campaign and some of the ideas of Andrew Yang. But the people who would benefit the most from those policies don't vote. So how do you get more people to vote? And of course, then the people who do vote tend to be more older and more, on the Democratic side, conservative.
Yeah, sure.
How do you get over that this dynamic here?
Well, the first thing is you have to have a candidate that young people are excited about. So the polling tells us right now that voters under 35 do not like Joe Biden or do not support him in any substantive numbers at all. Most of his support comes from people who are 65 and over. We were able to see young people vote in huge numbers in two back-to-back election cycles with Barack Obama in 2008 and in 2012. So to say young people don't vote is kind of a misnomer because they do vote. They just have to be properly motivated. And usually that motivation doesn't necessarily come in policy. It usually comes in the candidate themselves, and then the policy comes second. So again, we have to, and that's another reason why Hillary Clinton wasn't able to be successful, because again, young people did not believe in her. So we have to be able to put forth a candidate again that can meld the support from older, more conservative candidates, and still maintain the enthusiasm of young people. Which is why I said Joe Biden definitely, if he is the candidate, he definitely needs to have a VP pick that is progressive, that young people can still get behind and still have some degree of enthusiasm for.
That is super tough because I'm over 35, but I think a lot of folks who are quote unquote feeling more progressive ain't feeling Joe. They would vote for Uncle Joe, but they ain't feeling him at all. And so I think that we do. Politics is a personality. I feel it's a personality contest. But I think the Democrats, not all, but a lot, they focus too much on personality and not on policy. We have to move these. We're not going to get universal health care right away or universal basic income right away. But these things may take 10, 15, 20 years, but we have to move forward. So how do you convince the masses that we may not get these things and you may not personally benefit, but this is best for the country?
Yeah, so the thing is messaging, and unfortunately that's what Democrats don't do well. Oftentimes we either mismessage, or what usually happens is we allow Republicans to shape the messaging, and that's what's kind of happening even in this election cycle. When you can, matter of fact, we can go no further back than the affordable health care. When you called it either the affordable health care or you talked about the highlights of the program individually, people loved it. The minute they got turned off is when you called it Obamacare. And so, it's that messaging that causes people to be turned off. So right now the messaging is, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren are socialists, and they're able to vilify the word socialist. But one, they're not socialists. They are able to make a distinction as to what they would call democratic socialists. And two, this country is kind of hypocritical in so much as everybody hates socialism until you need it. So in 2008, 2009, when we had the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression, and we were told that the banks were too big to fail and they're going to need a government bailout, then everybody was okay with socialism. Because
definitely the rich
it.
were definitely the rich.
Right, exactly. So again, they had no problem with socialism then, but now when socialism could be used to give the average Joe a leg up and the average Joe an even opportunity, now it becomes a bad word. So Democrats just have to take control of the messaging and remind people that, if you're honest about your situation, regardless of how you feel about liberals, regardless of how you feel about progressives, if you're honest about your day-to-day situation, Trump's tax cut didn't help you. As a matter of fact, you have less money in your pockets. You're working 2 and 3 jobs, not to get ahead, but to make ends meet. Those are Republican policies. If we can begin to tie that stuff to right-to-work laws, to the deconstruction of unions, if we can begin to get that message out there in a clear way that's digestible, I think Democrats can then press their policies as things that's good for the average American.
Yeah, I could be wrong, and you can comment on my comment here, Atiba. I think the Democrat. Yeah, I think you can. I think I could be wrong with these three things I'm looking at right now. I just wrote down when you were talking.
Okay.
The Democrats, they got to focus on health care that is affordable and excellent health care that's affordable for all. No one should go bankrupt over medical bills. Of course, nobody should go to the ER for my finger hurts, something silly. So they have to really, really break down this health care and make it simple for people to understand. Climate change. Some people health care is not the issue, but climate change is. They really have to focus on climate change. That's not my issue. My issue is, of course, an economy that works for the working class. And what does that mean? So I think they have to focus on the issues, an economy that works for the working class, because it works for half of Americans, but a lot of us, it doesn't really work, and won't continue to work, even work worse as the AI and the algorithms become, especially the AI becomes more of the part of the economy. So how come the Democrats can't just simplify the message so people can say, okay, I may not agree with that, but I do believe in climate change. I do want health care. I do want an economy that works for the working class.
Yeah, once again, I agree with you wholeheartly. We saw in the 2018 midterms that health care was the prevailing issue. That's what caused them. That's the main factor that allowed Democrats to take 40 plus seats in the House. So people are sensitive about their health care, and it helps that Republicans are so bad at it. They have not offered to date a viable health care plan. And I'm going all the way back to the Obama administration, because the entire time they said the Affordable Care Act wouldn't work, they never offered up a plan in those 8 years. And in the 3 years that President Trump has been president, they still have not offered up one, even when they had control of the House and the Senate and the White House. So because Republicans are so bad at health care, and there's nothing on the table that the American people can compare what they have to what Republicans are offering, that's kind of a gimme for Democrats. All we have to do is just keep reminding them that we are for health care, and we just keep reminding them that, again, Republicans clearly are not for it, and they haven't even come up with a plan. As far as the economy goes, again, I think people are beginning to. I'm seeing some cracks. You can talk about the low unemployment numbers, but again, when you talk about the reality, you can have 3.7% unemployment, but to your earlier point, still have half the country not be able to come up with $400 in case of an emergency. And it is that statistic that people will remember, is that they can't come up with $400 in case they need it without getting a payday loan. As a matter of fact, for all of the millions of Americans that have payday loans and are paying God knows what in interest, those are things that you can talk to, that they can relate to, that they shouldn't have to do. And you can remind them then that Democrats were trying to get rid of, and we were close to getting rid of, all of these payday loan places with these vulture interest rates. And it was President Trump, once again, that saved the day for them to allow them to keep gouging the American people. So, again, to me, it's all about messaging. We just have to keep reminding people that Republicans are for big business. They're strictly for corporations, as evidenced by who benefited from their tax cuts, and that Democrats are genuinely here for the average Joe.
Atiba Buchanan, I can talk politics forever, but we have to end a little video podcast. Can I have you back in a month or two?
Absolutely, man. I'm here for you. I appreciate you having me on today. I had a fantastic time.
All right. I'll put the link to your podcast on the bottom of this video, and I hope to meet you in person in a month or two.
Man, that sounds good. Anytime.
All right. Appreciate it.